there's going to be jobs that suck, okay? That's just how it is. But when you are wanting to work towards a career or doing something that you love, you really have to be willing to do like the suck up front.
What's your plan for tomorrow? Are you a leader or will you follow? Are you a fighter or will you cower? It's our time to take back the power. What's your plan?
Hey guys, welcome back to the Rebel Show with Brie Mesquit. I'm Brie Mesquit and I'm excited about today. I'm going to be talking about my time at European Wax Center. So in preparation for this episode, I did put up on my stories on Instagram, just asking what questions you guys had about European Wax Center. So first, I'm going to just briefly go over my story. I'll dive deeper into specifics in further episodes. But today I just want to kind of give a general overview and my thoughts on working at a corporate waxing center, whether it's European Wax Center or elsewhere. And then I'll end today's episode with answering some of the questions that I got on Instagram. So let's get straight into it. I'm going to just start off with saying I don't regret my time at European Wax Center at all. I'm really seeing the need for a mindset shift. You guys have to keep in mind, and this is how I went into this position, was that I was getting paid to learn. So it's just a stepping stone. It's part of the journey to achieving your ultimate goal, which a lot of us want to go out on our own and have successful, fully booked clienteles. Waiting lists would be ideal, and just being able to fully support ourselves with our own businesses. But we need to work our way to that point. Of course, there's always going to be your gems and the exceptions to the rule, but I highly recommend straight out of school of just finding somewhere to work that has great training. They're able to bring in clientele for you. And then you're just focusing on the actual technique of waxing. You're learning how to wax. You're learning how to communicate with clients. You're learning how to work with other people, especially if this is your first job. And then you can learn a lot of the back end stuff too. So this is where the mindset stuff, having that mindset shift is really important. Of course, you're not going to love everything about working for someone because you have to play by their rules. But what I loved about European Wax Center was I did like the structure. I did like that they brought the clienteles in, so I was able to really be doing high volume. I was waxing constantly all day. Is it exhausting? Absolutely. But I learned so much through that. My technique, I started picking it up because you have no choice. Like the first week, training week, let's talk about training week. Oh my gosh, it was absolutely intense. So when I first started, that was back when we had red scrubs too. Now I think they're gray with like a little red line. And I'm pretty sure they all have like the same pillars and like the same look. I just went by the one that I worked at not too long ago, and it was very strange. I went up front and I asked my husband, I'm like, can you take a picture? And the girls at the front desk are looking at me like, what the heck are you doing? And then they're laughing at me. And it felt so good though to walk out of there, them laughing at me. I'm like, you're stuck still here. I'm good. Not. I can leave. Anyways, okay, sorry. Getting off on a side tangent. But when I first got started, training week was crazy. It was really intense. So just push yourself to get through that first week. They had me sit down, watch some videos. Then there was a trainer that worked there and would also provide training, which is what I worked my way up to being. So they provided like the hands-on training. I was required to help book models, but they did help as well. So they would get girls from like the call center or other waxers from other locations that they also owned to come in, and I would be practicing on them. And then there was the final test. So the final test was a Brazilian wax. I had my friend come in. I went through all the steps, did really well. And I guess I passed because they kept me on. So you start first, I believe it's like you're pink, and then you work up different levels. So at first I was required to do a Brazilian in 30 minutes, and they taught me a beginner Brazilian pattern. And then from there, you would move up to the next level of needing to be able to do a Brazilian in 15 minutes. Now, I know this is a lot and that can be really terrifying, but the patterns that they teach, once you get a few under your belt, you'll get there. And the nice thing is that you're not having to also check your clients in and out. You provide the service, you walk them up front, and then their front desk people takes care of the rest. Now, one of the biggest things that a lot of people were talking to me about on my Instagram when I had posted this on my stories was the pressure of retail. So with retail, I would really lead with like what they actually needed rather than just trying to make the sale. So sometimes it would tick off the managers, but overall for the month, I would always be like top sales. So there's really something to it. Make sure you're serving your client well. So little things like, pulling 3 body washes just so they could get that 20% off. And I knew they could actually use the body wash and it would help them achieve the results they needed. Like I would do things like that instead of trying to get them to just buy all of it. So I would always start people off. And this is something you can do even if you're out on your own, is a great exfoliant. Right. Honestly, now I recommend scrub gloves, which I know European Wax Center does not have, but a great exfoliant, a great body wash, and then an ingrown hair serum. Or I would also be trying to set myself up for a future sale by talking to new clients about these things. I would acknowledge what I call like client objections before they ever said them. So this is another reason why I love European Wax Center, because of the volume you're doing. You're putting in the practice, but you're putting in the practice under their reputation, under the name, the business name of European Wax Center. It's not going to follow you. So that's one thing too that's really important is to think about, is when you go out on your own, now the reputation that you build is solely on you, and it's really hard to come back from a bad reputation. But if you are working for a company, working for someone else, and you're new and you're making some of those mistakes, like it's okay. Those mistakes are going to stay there and you will have a fresh start once you go out on your own. So I would really have the mindset when I was like pushing retail or trying to upsell services that I'm trying to learn the best way, the most natural way for me to do this and produce the results that I want, so that once I went out on my own, I would already have experience with this, because you'll have a whole different view on retail and on upselling services once you go out on your own and you realize how much additional income it can help bring in for you and for your business. So I just had the mindset of everything is practice for when I would eventually go out on my own, because I came into this position knowing that this is not where I wanted to spend all of my time. I knew I would eventually want to go out on my own and have my own business. So every day that I'd go in, I'd give it 110%. I would even go over and beyond to be trying to help out the managers, or when they were doing inventory, I would ask if they needed help with anything. And I'm sure some of the girls that I worked with thought I was a kiss ass, but I just really was wanting to learn all aspect of the business, because I knew that this was not going to be it for me, and that eventually I would want to go out on my own. And these would be things that I would be required to be doing now for myself. So why not utilize, again, this time to being paid to learn? So I love that fact about working elsewhere. Now, when you go and are working for someone else, it's also really important that we are not burning any bridges. So I didn't go in thinking, I'm just going to get through training week, work for a little bit, get everything that I need, and then go out on my own. I really believe it's important to at least commit to a year, but even 2 years, and really it needs to just become second nature. By the time you go out on your own, you should not be struggling with technique anymore. Is there always room to grow? Absolutely. We should be forever students. We should always be updating our technique and making sure we're staying current with the trends and what's working, and making sure we're always, involved in some sort of continued education. The burning bridges thing. You never know how some of these people will come into play further on in your life. So for example, before I went to European Wax Center, I was working at a day spa. Okay, I absolutely love the owner to death, and it was really hard for me to leave. But I sat down with her. I didn't just not show up to work one day, which you'd be surprised how often this happens. People get really anxious about talking to their boss, about wanting to move on to a new opportunity. So they'll just literally ghost them and just not show up to work. It's insane how often I hear horror stories like that from owners. It's you don't want to do that, because, for example, with my relationship with this spa owner, now she's come into play so many times recently in my life and has helped me a lot with my career and my business currently. And this was a relationship that I built 12 years ago. So if I would have burnt that bridge because I was too anxious to talk to her about wanting to move on to European Wax Center or whatever excuses and reasons and things that people have for doing shady deals or burning bridges, like I mentioned, it's just not worth it. You never know. You want to make sure, especially when you're going out on your own, like I said, it's your reputation now. It's like it's on you. It's your name. So you just want to make sure that you're doing things right with integrity, and not burning those bridges. So that's one thing. But I really do highly encourage you to commit to that year or two. So again, everything, it just becomes second nature. You got the technique nailed down. You start learning a little bit about marketing, because European Wax Center does have good marketing structures with their packages and their memberships and their discounts when you buy, larger quantities of product. The thing that I don't love about working at a corporate center like that is that oftentimes clients would feel like they were just a number. And that's why I love being able to be out on my own, because now I make the rules. I get to provide whatever services I want, because of course, when you're working at a waxing center, you're just strictly providing waxing. So being able to add additional services in, maybe doing like vajacials or any other little add-on services. I started doing eyelash extensions, spray tanning, etc. So that's a bonus to being out on your own as well. So just spending that time there with the intention, always keeping in mind that eventually what your future goals are. And then of course, just learning gathering as much information as you can. Also in my downtime between clients, I really tried to stop myself from just hanging out in the room, gossiping. Of course, I partook in that too and hung out with the other waxers, but I would always have some sort of like business book with me. We were not allowed to have our cell phones, so I had a physical book with me, and I'd be reading in between clients and really just always trying to utilize my time to, again, push me closer to my ultimate goal, which was to go out on my own and build my own clientele. Okay, so I have quite a few questions that came in on my Instagram, so I will go through these. And then in the future, I'll be diving deeper into like my time there, funny stories and things. So a lot more to be said about European Wax Center, but let me get through your question. So one of the questions was, do they really give you a 15-minute time limit? So it just depends on what level it is that you're at. So I actually was the first red level waxer at my center, which I was very proud of. I'm motivated. Also, that was another thing I actually did like about European Wax Center, was being able to work your way up, because I'm very motivated by that. Like I always want to reach the top level and like whatever that is. So that worked really well for me, but there are different levels. So like I said, I know one girl that was there and there for quite some time actually stayed at what I think was blue level. So she was at a 30-minute Brazilian. So she had time, but yes, they do for certain levels. The next 3 above that, I believe, it is a 15-minute time limit. But, they teach you the patterns, they teach you the technique to be able to actually complete that. So yes, that is a thing. With how little time they gave you to wax, did you ever go over on time? So I really thrive in a fast-paced, like kind of stressful environment. So yeah, of course I did go over sometimes, but it's usually more due to a client being late or like outside factors, not necessarily me struggling to get that time down, because I actually got to the point where I was providing, I can do a Brazilian in 7 minutes. So now being out on my own, I book 15 minutes for a Brazilian, but I'm now the one checking them in, checking them out, pre-booking, taking payment, all the things. But that's another benefit to once you go out on your own, then you make the rules and you can book the service as long as you want. That's another thing that actually really attracted me to waxing, was because I was doing facials prior to waxing, and facials, you're tied down to an hour, right? Or an hour and a half, whatever type of facial it is that they book for. But with waxing, I realized I'm like, the faster I get, I'm like, in essence, giving myself a raise. Because if I'm doing 2 Brazilians in an hour, charging $50, that's $100 an hour. And of course, we're not charging $50. I'm just throwing a random number out there. And then if I got faster and could get it down to 15 minutes, I just gave myself 100% increase, raise. Where can you go and get 100% raise? So I was really motivated by that fact. So I love moving fast. So this didn't bother me too much. But yes, there was definitely some times when I did go over, but I would simply excuse myself from the room, walk up front, let the front desk know, hey, I'm running about 5-10 minutes over, so that they could let my next client know, go back in the room and get started. Now, this was the time when I would use powder. If you guys have been following me at all for any length of time, you know that I don't love powder. I avoid it at all costs, and I do not prep my clients with it. But when coming back into the treatment room, you're all sweaty, you're rushing, your hands are clammy. Getting those vinyl gloves on is like almost impossible. So I put a little powder on my hands, throw some gloves on, and get back to it. I don't know why I went on about that, but it just kind of popped in my head. All right, next question I had is, what did you think about them doing write-ups if not adding on services? Okay, so again, we need to change our mindset on it of really trying to actually upsell, because you're going to want to end up doing this for yourself and your business eventually. But write-ups, I mean, honestly, and maybe this is the rebel in me, like, what's a write-up going to do? It's a piece of paper. They write something on it, and like, I don't know, it sits in a closet. I wouldn't be too, if I knew I was giving it my solid effort, and also was being like genuine with my clients. So I'm not going to try to upsell them on something that they don't need. So I would kind of have my scripts, honestly, like you go. Another thing with European Wax Center, actually, I totally forgot about their scripts. So they have scripts for you, and I would follow them, but then I would tweak them to be like authentic and true to me, so it came out more natural. So one of the services that I always really like to upsell was nose. So I would tell them, like, actually before starting to work here, I never had experience in nose wax, but then I did it, and it's like, I'm hooked, and I think you would really like it. I can add it on today, or maybe next time, like, let's add on a nose wax. You got to try it. You would love it. Just things like that, being more like natural. You don't have to try to like upsell them a full leg wax or something, like just something that really they could actually benefit from. But hey, if you're trying your best, you're serving your clients well, you're keeping them in mind and their needs in mind, and then you get written up, like, it's one of those things. We're not going to love every aspect of a job, but we're keeping our future goals in mind. So honestly, being written up wouldn't bother me. And then if I ended up getting too many and got fired, then it was my time to move on. I'm a true believer in whatever happens is meant to happen. So do I think that's the best business practice on their end? Maybe not. I think that if someone was struggling with not adding on services, then maybe they need to provide better training. But I also wouldn't be too worried about it and too hung up on that. All right, next question was it a different experience being trained? How to train others? How was the experience? Ooh, I did really like training others. So the only time I went to like an actual corporate like training event was when they came out with new brow products. So I was sent to Corona, California, and I was working in Newport Beach, California. Went to Corona, California. I learned their new like brow technique, and then I came back to the center and actually taught it to the rest of the girls. So that was the only time when it was like a train the trainer event, like to where I was being trained on how to train. So that was pretty cool, but it was more just the new techniques and the new products. So I was more just like passing along the information. I think to become like a great trainer, you already kind of have to naturally have like a knack for teaching. So I really enjoy teaching. I love it. It's my passion. You guys probably could pick up on that from me now. But yeah, so it was a little different. I also had a lot of girls I didn't like love that I got chosen to do that. So there was like that whole thing too, but I really enjoyed it. It was really fun, but I do feel like it's something that you kind of naturally have to have. Then you can learn the technique and learn how, of course you can always become a better teacher and study teaching, study education by different learning styles, different teaching styles. And I really, truly believe it's important to be a chameleon so that you can match your student, so that you're making sure that you're teaching them in the way that they can best learn and actually retain and then be able to execute on whatever it is that you're teaching. All right, next question is, how long would you recommend someone to stay there? So I really think at bare minimum a year. If you're going to do it, commit to a bare minimum a year. I think 2 years would be ideal. I was there between 3-4 years. I'd really need to sit down and write my timeline out because I was actually hired and fired from the same European Wax Center twice. All right, I'll tell you guys a story real quick. The first time I worked at European Wax Center, unfortunately, my grandma had been battling cancer for 18 years. I was raised by my grandmother, and because my mom had passed when I was younger, which I did mention in a previous episode, but she was really struggling. After my husband and I got married, which was in 2014, she just really started going downhill. So she ended up passing away, unfortunately. And of course, like, first of all, I was completely torn up about it. It was a really difficult time in my life. One I would never want to revisit. I was pregnant with my second daughter at that time too. So like, I was a mess. Anyways, of course, I needed to be able to have time to help plan the funeral and then attend the funeral. And they only wanted to give me the 2 or 3 bereavement days that you are supposed to get, which would have required me to be back to work on the day of my grandma's funeral. So I'm like, well, that's not going to happen. So I told them, I'm like, I'm sorry, but I'm not going to be there. So we're going to have to figure something out. I got a letter in the mail. And it was like a forced quit. So pretty much they forced me to quit. I was told I was not fired because then I couldn't collect unemployment. So don't love that. I think that was pretty shady. But the reason why I went back the second time was because we were living in a trailer to really just, we were a young family living in Orange County, California. It's expensive. So we were just doing what we had to do to try to just kind of make it through, pay the bills and like feed ourselves. Like, and I can go more into my story on that. I mean, there's times when we're going to, homeless shelters, collect food and like it was a really rough time, but I don't regret it at all. It really built a lot of character and like grit and like just the unwillingness to quit in me. So I don't regret it. It's part of my story. And yes, but I went back a second time because during the summer, so our space rent, even living in a trailer, and I'm not talking a mobile home, like a literal trailer. We were living in a trailer. Our space rent was $1,200 a month to park a trailer. And then in the summertime, it would shoot up to $2,400 a month for June, July, and August. So we're like, we couldn't afford that. So I told my husband, I'm like, we need to figure something out for the summer months and like put our trailer somewhere else. So we actually ended up moving into my husband's brother, so my brother-in-law and his wife, their backyard. And oh my gosh, you guys, like bless them. Like I'm so grateful that they allowed us to do that. But it was really terrible living situation because once we put our trailer back there, like first of all, there was tons of gophers in their backyard. So when we pulled our trailer in, it like the ground collapsed. Okay. Then the power situation we had, my husband and my father-in-law had to like rig up, like to be able to plug in to, I don't even know how they did it, but our power would constantly be going out. It would be so blazing hot in there. There were so many times I would just go sit in my car and turn it on, put the AC on to like cool down and like strip my kids down to just their diapers. So we're like sitting in the car to cool off because we were they lived more inland. So it'd get really warm. We weren't by the beach now anymore with like the ocean breeze and all that, or being able to have the option to like go down the beach and cool off in the water. So there was that. And then it was absolutely infested by ants. Like, you guys, oh my God, just thinking about it is like giving me the heat. Like the walls would look, it was so, I can't believe, okay, it was disgusting. I'm not even going to go into more detail. You can kind of like so I had a breaking point and I told him I can't do this anymore. Like I felt beyond homeless. Like it just felt so filthy. And like, I hated everything about it. So I was like, and at this point I was not working at European Wax Center. I honestly, this is a really kind of foggy time of my life, so I can't even really remember what I was doing. I know we had our moving company, so Chance was working, and I was helping book and do that. I can't remember exactly what I was doing. I might have just been home with the kids. But anyways, I was like, I can't do this anymore. He's like, well, you're gonna have to go back to work. I'm like, fine. So I knew that if I went back to the location that I was previously working at, even with the shadiness that I knew I would have a fully booked clientele and that I could just start getting those paychecks in and we could move back to the trailer park, which was actually like, I feel like we found like a gray area and like we cheated the system because we actually lived in the Newport Dunes, if you guys are familiar. So it was in the Back Bay in Newport. So we were literally like on the water. So it was really beautiful resort. It was really cool. So anyways, I knew that if I went back to that same European Wax Center, I'd be fully booked out and I'd have a decent paycheck coming in and we could afford to go back to the dunes during those really high summer rates. So that's what I did. So that's why I ended up back there the second time. So once I was there again, I was already red level waxer. I was already training. So I just started back with where I left off. I'm surprised actually now thinking back like that the owner even had me back, but they knew I was an asset. I was always top sales. I was a really good team player. Like I didn't cause them problems or issues or anything. I just like went in, did my job, made my money, got my tips and was out of there and back home to my kids. So there was a point though, when I was now pregnant with my third, my son, I was like, I've hit the top like level of income that I can make here. I was getting every sales bonus. I was a red level. I was doing 5 services within 15 minutes. So a red level waxer, I was doing a Brazilian. I could be doing a Brazilian. So this was most common. Brazilian lower leg, underarm, brow, and upper lip wax in 15 minutes. Absolutely insane. There was even times when I would have 2 girls in at one time because like another waxer would be out. So I remember, I don't know why I remember these 2 girls specifically. They were getting ready for prom. One wanted a Brazilian in her brows. The other wanted her brows. So I had the one that just wanted her brows sit on the stool in the corner while I waxed the other one. And I was like going back and forth. So like I hustled it out, not for the owners, but for myself and for my paycheck. So, and I knew that eventually, again, I want to do this on my own. But anyways, I was there, I maxed out on income and I was like, I need to figure something else out. So I actually went to a microblading course. I will talk about that on a future episode. I got completely scammed. We went to court. This girl like made it big on social media from this stupid video that went viral. She was on the Ellen show. Like it's this whole drama fest that we can talk about. It'll be kind of some fun tea to share with you guys. But anyways, so I went and took this microblading because I wanted to open up my own thing, but I couldn't provide waxing services because of the non-compete and like I didn't want to get in trouble. I needed to keep my job so that I could build this on the side and then eventually go. Well, someone ratted me out and the owner came in one day and he's like, Bree, I need to talk to you. He's all coming in all acting like I looked at him this straight away. I was like, I know exactly why you're here and what we're going to talk about. You're not going to intimidate me. We can sit down like 2 adults and have a conversation. And he was really like put off by that because everyone was like scared of him. I'm like, I'm not scared of you. Like, come on. Like I'm doing what I have to do for my family. Anyways, we went out back. We talked. I explained to him my situation. I'm living in a trailer, pregnant with my 3rd baby. This isn't the end goal for me. Like I was meant for a lot more than this. So I'm sorry, but this is just kind of what I had to do. So let me know your decision. I understand either way. After that conversation, he led me to believe that they potentially would keep me on still as long as I wasn't providing waxing services. But I knew what direction this was going to go. So I went inside, emptied out my locker, went up to the front desk, asked for my license. She's like, we're not supposed to. I'm like, give me my license. Thank you. Grabbed my license, left, called my husband. I was like, I just got fired again. And he's like, what? I'm like, let's go. We are going all in. I was so motivated. And technically I wasn't even fired yet. But then a couple days later, I was at my new studio space and he called me and that was it. So we parted ways. And that was the second time I got fired from European Wax Center. I'm kind of proud of it. Being hired and fired from the same European Wax Center twice. That's a rebel. Okay, so the next question was, did you take any clients with you? I actually did not. So I stayed true to the non-solicit, but I made myself visible online. So that's why I really started utilizing social media because I wanted them to be able to find me. So I made sure to put key points in my bio and in my profile so that they could find me. Instead of putting my full name, which you guys might not even know is Brianna, I put Bree because that's what my name tag said and what all my clients knew me as. I put my former job history. European Wax Center. So I just made it that they could find me by putting in the few key things that I knew all of them knew about me. They knew that I lived in Newport. They knew, my name being Bree. And then they knew obviously that I worked there. So I made all that on Facebook so that they could find me. And then maybe a handful of them did find me, reach out, and then they did come and start being serviced by me. But I really had to start from scratch. Is there an option to refuse service? That's going to vary. So each location has different owners. So that would be something you guys have to keep in mind too. When you go on these interviews, not only are they interviewing you, this is the time to ask these questions to them as well. It's okay for you to ask questions and in essence, be kind of interviewing them as well. Do they enforce the late policy so that your whole day isn't thrown off with your bookings? Mine did. So I believe it was like a 7-minute late policy. So at the 7-minute mark, they're booking, because you could go online, see your books, it would turn red and they'd be considered a no-show. So they did do that. But if they showed up at the 6-minute mark and then you get them back and you start walking, still going to push you behind a little bit. But the front desk was pretty good at letting your next client know that you're running just a little bit behind. And usually I always had at least one person who had like a brow wax thrown in there or something where I could catch up on my time. But it definitely can get a little bit stressful. But again, you're not going to love every aspect of your job, whether it's working here or elsewhere. There's always going to be something that you don't like. So I just pushed through and just got it done. Were you living comfortably, or did you still feel like ends weren't meeting? The only reason why I feel like ends weren't meeting was, first of all, I was very young. I was only 18 when I got pregnant, 19 when I had my daughter. So I had big responsibilities at a young age and big bills that normally wouldn't have been there, and living in Orange County. And I got myself into some debt and stuff like that. So it was my own doing to make it stressful. So it was hard, again, because of being in Orange County, being a young family, but I definitely could have lived not my dream life, but I could have been comfortable enough had I been better at managing my money. My paychecks were pretty decent, especially because of those bonuses when it came to retail sales and commissions on services and add-ons and all the things. Did you make good tips? I did, because of where I was located, being in Newport Beach. It was a high volume center, and I actually had quite a few celebrity clients as well. What were some positives you brought into your own business other than waxing? I love this question. Bless you. What a great mindset you already have. I can tell. Learning inventory and stuff was big. So like I mentioned before, I would help the managers do that. Learning how to deal with certain personality types when it came to clients, that was big. Learning how to be assertive too with clients, like owning my room, that was a really big one, and really in a kind, professional way, guiding the client to do what we need them to do. And especially little things like when they're already running late and then they want to lollygag in the bathroom and stuff, just being able to figure out a professional way to inform them of kind of moving them along and directing them how I needed to direct them. That was a big one. Learning some of the sales and marketing, both good and bad. I would take the good and see what was really working and then implement that into my own business, and then was able to tweak some other things that I could see where they could have some improvement. So sales and marketing and the whole retail and all of that helped me with my business as well. And then I did also implement into my business, which would fall under sales and marketing as well, the membership and packages as well, which was huge. Clients really loved that. The hardest challenge I had to face while working there, honestly, I think it was really difficult sometimes when it came to my coworkers, just because I was trying to balance between not being a teacher's pet or whatever you would call it, when I was trying to go over and beyond with the intention of wanting to learn the back end stuff. So I could feel that I rubbed some of the other girls the wrong way, just because I was climbing quickly and really I don't know, I was just going for it. I was trying to meet all the sales goals. I needed to make as much as I could. I was super motivated, especially with having kids. So I think sometimes it was hard with coworkers. So I really do like working on my own, and then being able to just work with you guys in the capacity I do now by helping you guys grow your business. But like, we're not in like competition. And I feel like sometimes people made me their competition, and that was really difficult because I am at the core very much a people pleaser, and it can be really difficult for me when I know people don't like me or they're upset with me or annoyed with me. But I kind of just had to push through that and keep in mind what my goals were. So that was probably the hardest challenge for me. All the other stuff when it came to the owners and stuff, like it was annoying things, but I just realized like I knew like this isn't my business. I don't own it. So like if I don't like it, then I need to just go start my own thing. And I knew that's eventually what I was going to do. So that stuff didn't bother me too much because I knew it was temporary. This is a funny question. Does their wax really make your hair grow back more? No wax can do that. As crappy of a wax, you could go use duct tape and that's not going to happen. Like, no, that does not, you can't. Hair is hormonal. So if anything, if you have more hair growing in, it's because there's some hormonal change or something. Like wax can't make you grow more hair. But if you don't have correct technique or the wax totally sucks, which sometimes I could tell when their formulas would fluctuate a little bit. Maybe you're breaking the hair and then it's feeling coarser, which can give the appearance of a little bit thicker. But no, it's not going to make your hair grow back more. And I'm not the biggest fan of their wax. I have so many girls that reach out to me after leaving European Wax and they're like, what's the wax that's the most like European Wax? And I'm like, you don't want that. Like, there's better waxes out there. I don't know if I'm going to get myself in trouble for name dropping European Wax Center so much. It's just my experience. That's where I work, so I don't know. But anyways, I wasn't the biggest fan of their wax. And once I got out on my own, and that was actually my biggest concern before wanting to go out on my own and thinking about going out on my own to provide wax services, I was like so worried about finding a great wax. But once I really got into the field on my own and away from working elsewhere, I found there's actually a lot better waxes out there. And now there's the best. Shameless plug. Okay. How's their aftercare products? So I definitely had my favorites, and then I had ones that I wouldn't recommend to people. But this is what I call the sacrificial lamb. So if you're honest with your clients, I would tell them like, hey, so this product here, I don't recommend it. It's a little bit the base is alcohol, and I don't really recommend that when waxing. Why they carry this, I don't know. This is not don't purchase this. But the products I really like are their body wash and their ingrown. I really liked the exfoliating pads, actually. They worked really well. So I would be super honest with my clients. And actually that helped me to build it. So it's about building like no trust factor, right? But it really built trust with them. So they knew that when I did recommend a product that they actually needed it and it would benefit them and help them get closer to whatever results they were trying to achieve by investing in waxing. So that's what I call like the sales tactic of sacrificial lamb. So just be honest. But yes, there were some products that I really liked, and there were products of theirs that I did not like. How different is the technique working with their wax compared to others? I use the same technique. The only thing is sometimes it would have difficulty picking up vellus hairs. And now that's why actually when formulating Rebel, I really wanted to nail down a formula that would pick up anywhere from coarse to vellus and everything in between. So sometimes I struggled with that. So I was doing a lot more cleanup strips when I was working there using their wax than I do now working on my own. All right, that was the last question, you guys. If you guys have any more questions about my experience at European Wax Center, please feel free to ask, and in future episodes will go further in depth. And if you're currently working there and you're struggling with anything, especially when it comes to retail sales or upsells, I can definitely go over some little tips that I've learned in the future as well. Thank you for joining me again today. Please make sure to subscribe, share this show with anyone that you think it may benefit, and I will see you back next week.